what I plan to talk about anyway is something that we call butler lies, and I'll get into a bit more about what I mean by that in a second. But essentially what I'm talking about is availability management. And by availability management, I'm talking about something that we all do all the time. Basically deciding when you're available to interact with others and when you're not, which gets harder and harder the more devices that we have to talk to other people. You may have your iPhone in your pocket and you want to get an email from your friend, but you don't really want to get an email from your professor. You may want to chat on IM with somebody you're working on a paper with, but you may not want to chat with your mom on instant messaging. And so we have strategies for managing our availability and figuring out when we're available to talk about stuff. And that's essentially what I'm talking about. Get into a little bit of motivation, something you've probably all seen, an instant messaging buddy list of some form or another. And this is essentially where the motivation for this work comes from, this idea that a lot of us manage our availability via contact lists. And traditionally, the approach to contact lists has been pretty technical. We have a list of names. There's circles next to them. In this case, in Gmail, the green circles, this is my contact list. The green circles represent people who are listing themselves at least as available. The red circles represent people who are not available. The darker circles represent people who are offline, and there are lots of representations. There are lots of ways that we do this. But the basic idea is that you can explicitly say that you're available or that you're busy. One problem with this, of course, is how many of you, when you're sitting there and it says you're available on Instant Messenger and you get a phone call, how many of you instantly change your status to busy? Anybody? No, of course not. Because that takes effort. It's not something that you think to do. How many of you know people or yourselves list your status as busy all the time or away all the time? Yeah, so that people don't interrupt you. That's another strategy for managing availability. And there are also ways that we do this socially. So in conversation, we say things that may or may not be true, but that also govern our availability. So for instance, I'm in a tunnel, I can hardly hear you. Or you text somebody saying, I'm almost there, even though you haven't actually left home. And I'll show you lots of examples of these, but there are social strategies that we use all the time for managing availability. And these are often in contrast to the technical approaches that we've used to this, because technical approaches to awareness and availability are basically about, you're available or you're not. Why would you want to lie about that? Whereas these social approaches tend to be more subtle and more nuanced.